Asia Tech Podcast. Voice of the Asian tech ecosystem.
Hey, Ashley, welcome to the show.
Hi, Graham. Wonderful to be here.
Hey, wonderful to have you. How's the book going? Any signings this week? What have you been doing with the book? Out promoting, beating the street, doing the hustle, as any sort of good author should be out there doing the marketing?
Yes. So we sold out last week. We didn't have any physical copies, and we're now waiting for a delivery from Amazon. So it's basically a lot of, firefighting and telling people, hold on, the physical books are arriving.
People
somehow, Hong Kong and Asia.
Right, they're still buying physical books, the old paper books.
Yes, and that's surprising. I really thought that everybody would be just getting their Amazon, Kindle versions, but no, people want their physical books. Yeah. And a couple of people are buying for their offices, so they basically distribute, among their colleagues, and jokingly saying that they're going to ask their marketing department to memorize that book.
Yeah.
So everybody wants a print copy. Yeah, and you cannot print from Kindle. I guess that's what's stopping people from, buying from Kindle and then just printing it out.
Exactly. There's something of having a book on your desk, isn't there? It's quite a nice thing, having that book there, the physical book. I mean, I'm a Kindle person myself, but I like picking up, old paperbacks and reading them, because sometimes there's no distractions, are there? Sometimes when you're on an iPad and you're reading a book, there's like, messages and email, and you're just going to check the weather. With a book, it's a book. You're in that world.
And besides that, you can highlight so well, and you probably have that visual memory as well. Yeah. So with that visual memory, how does the page look that you want to refer to, and if it's it's a book where you want to go back again and again to check some stuff, if it's a guide to doing something, then it's I think really better to have a physical copy.
So we're going to talk about your book, obviously unlocking the world's biggest e-market, and a big part of that is obviously e-commerce and retail, as you described, new retail. I want to start by asking you, these figures blow me away, Ashley. Help me out here. When I see the Alibaba figures, 11/11, the Singles Day. So, I mean, I use AliExpress because a lot of people outside of China may be familiar with AliExpress or Alibaba through that. That's a good way to order this Alibaba platform products to different countries. And I think it's becoming more and more popular outside of China. And, the 11/11 promotions are really, it's a big thing. Everybody's in it and everybody's pushing it, every single merchant on there. But just let's look at the numbers, $25 billion. And I think I saw...
In one day.
yeah, I saw the numbers and I can't believe this. And you've got to correct me if I've got this wrong, Ashley, because you're the authority on this.
No. These are the numbers. Yeah.
But I think Jack Ma, I think it was Jack Ma, stood up on stage and announced the numbers. And he said they did 325,000 transactions in 1 second at the peak of that 11/11. What is going on? What's 11/11 about anyway? I mean, maybe we can start there.
They are very prepared. So 11/11 is basically it started a couple of years ago, and it was a small holiday, I would say, a local holiday in China for a single, for single people. So contrary to Valentine's Day, single people would just celebrate being single, and they would go and buy themselves presents. So that's how it started. Wow. And then Alibaba, and back in the day, Taobao was very smart to actually launch a Singles Day campaign. So it wasn't supposed to be a, shopping festival. It was a campaign saying, guys, you are single, so get yourself a present. And this time, don't go to a physical store or treat yourself for dinner, but treat yourself for a discounted item on this e-commerce channel, Taobao. And a lot of people did. So that's how it started. And then Alibaba was like, oh my goodness, that's fantastic. Let's turn it into a festival. I don't think at the very beginning they actually realized that 11/11 is going to turn into such a huge thing. I'm sure they planned for it. They were hoping something would happen with tons of the campaigns that they're launching. But I don't think they really anticipated that this will be the day.
Wow.
And ever since the launch of 11/11, it grew from 50 to 30, sometimes 200 something percent every year. So, for example, the transaction volume, as you mentioned, 25, 26 billion US dollars per day in 24 hours. It was, I think, 30 or 38% increase compared to last year. So it's basically growing and growing and growing. Right now, it's not just a shopping festival. I mean, if you think it is like Black Friday or Cyber Monday, you're wrong. Right now, it is a national, it's a national holiday. People actually wait for it.
Are you serious?
People plan. I'm telling you, people are waiting for it. People are planning for it. In the morning, people are asking.
Do people talk about it in the office like, oh, it's 11/11's coming, I'm going to do this? Really?
A week before that, they start compiling, lists of like wish lists, and they're congratulating themselves with, 11/11. And right now, it's not only about single people, obviously. Right. So everybody is basically shopping on that day, and not only once. I mean, they shop in the morning, they shop during lunch, they shop in the evening. They constantly try to catch the, let's say, good deal, and it's very personalized page that they are landing on, and it's fantastic what Alibaba is doing with their data. Besides that, it turned into one of the biggest TV events and gala events in China. It's very similar to the CCTV gala during Chinese New Year. It's that scale.
Well, what do they do? What do they? I mean, they televise this shopping experience? What goes on?
So this last year, there were, I think, 4 or 5 national channels broadcasting the gala. They actually brought Pharrell Williams. They brought Nicole Kidman.
Well, I mean, if they're making $25 billion in a day, they can bring whoever they like, right? They can fly them in, all expenses paid.
In 2016, they had Victoria and, Victoria Beckham and her husband there, and all the crazy people. Pharrell Williams actually wrote a song. You will be laughing, but he wrote a song specifically for 11/11, really? And he was performing it together with the Chinese superstar.
Wow. That's insane.
He wrote the song. Yeah, so it's insane. And what do people do? Like, what is this gala all about? So basically, it starts in the midnight, right? So gala starts a bit earlier, and then it goes into midnight, and then it announces the beginning of 11/11. So basically, people are waiting for it just like they're waiting for New Year, for the clock to strike 12. And then it's not just a show, it's not just a concert, but they basically incorporate a lot of messages. They incorporate a lot of technology into it. So it's all about shopping, entertainment, gamification. So for example, you're watching that TV show and you can scan a QR code and you can literally get this David Beckham and place him in your living room. So he will be performing something in your living room just as he is doing it, let's say, on stage in Shanghai, wherever he is. Yeah, it's unbelievable. So it's really, really fun. And it's not just a shopping festival. It's now the way of life on that specific day.
We've got to remind the listeners, if they haven't sort of picked up already, this is one company, right? This is not a national festival, national level. It's one company. It's not like Thanksgiving or Black Friday. It would be the equivalent of like Amazon invented Black Friday, right? And they owned that festival.
Absolutely.
So it's one company driving this, which is really quite, consider what they've achieved. I mean, 25 billion in sales, and they've managed to get 4 or 5 national TV networks covering this thing. It's phenomenal, really, what they've achieved. I mean,
and
just in one day.
Tons and tons of online platforms are also obviously broadcasting and live streaming the event. It's absolutely magnificent. And of course, Jack Ma is such a charismatic leader. Right. For 4 or 5 years, every year on 11/11, he puts up a fantastic show. Like this year, for example, he literally shot a movie about Kung Fu and about all sorts of different martial arts, Chinese martial arts. And he launched this movie on 11/11, and he, appeared there. I mean, it's a show, it's entertaining, it's fun, it's gamified, and it is retail. So you can also see people, for example, doing catwalk. and you can long press on your screen, like you can scan with your app what's happening on TV screen. You can long press and you can see now, buy now. Right? So it's the future of retail is literally incorporated into what's happening on 11/11. Before the day, you could also participate in some campaigns, like you could catch cats. So the logo of Tmall is a cat. So you can catch those cats, very similar to Pokemon Go. And the more cats you catch, the more promotional items you can get, or the bigger discount you get. I mean, it's a whole huge thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes me feel old, actually, because I don't get it. I mean, I love the festival and the show and that, but that whole spectacle. What did you do on 11/11? Were you watching the TV? Were you in Hong Kong at the time? What sort of happens there? Did people in Hong Kong sort of get involved in it as well?
Well, in general, people in Hong Kong do get involved in it, but not as much as obviously China. So in Hong Kong, the only involvement that we have here, people have the list of things that they want to buy cheaply. For example, my whole office was ordering, GoPro cameras at 12 o'clock at night on 11/11. And it actually came with like 50% discount.
Wow.
Don't underestimate the discounts that they give. And this is like official proper GoPro, latest hero that you get with 50% discount. So it's crazy. Everybody is waiting for it, right? But that's where it ends for Hong Kong, pretty much, just as it ends for the rest of the world. But last year, I was in Shanghai. I was participating in 11/11. So Alibaba has this, I would say, program, or it's called Global Influencer Entourage Team. Yeah, so they invite 10 or 15 global influencers in China, in marketing, in retail, to participate in 11/11 festival. So they brought us into Shanghai 2 days before 11/11, and we met all of their top executives, Jack Ma, Zhou Tsai, who is the second man in Alibaba. We met there Chris Tung, who is the head of marketing. We met Michael Evans, who is the head of USA. So we actually could have intelligent conversations with them to understand where Alibaba, as this giant, is taking new retail, is taking e-commerce, and is taking China ultimately. And at the end of it, we also participated, obviously, in the gala, and we were in the media center to see, how this, how this machine just works.
Yeah, I mean, let's sort of go a bit deeper into that. Alibaba, I think, because obviously they're one of the key names in the whole new retail push and what's coming out of China at the moment. And Jack Ma as well. I mean, I love Jack Ma. I think as well, he's a very sort of, he's a very positive face of what's happening in China at the moment, because I think people need a face to humanize this change, don't they, to understand it. And Jack Ma, I mean, he was an English teacher. He speaks English.
Right.
He's got a very, he's a bit of an odd looking guy, but, as a personality, he's fantastic. And he's up there doing his thing, right? So I think,
and he absolutely enjoys it. This person is, I mean, when you see him in videos, as you said, odd looking guy, and he speaks English and he's a bit quirky. He's such a lovely person. He's running his thing, and
you don't feel threatened by him. You don't feel like he's like the evil empire.
At all.
Right? Exactly.
No,
he's a good guy. I mean, that's the impression that he gives. He's a good guy. I think we sort of give him that. So, okay. And what about those? I mean, we talked about this last time on the last Ashley Talks. Is what about those all those girls eating noodles on live stream? What do they do? Are they part of like these 11/11 promotions? Do they? I mean, because I know you talked about influencers and that. I mean, people outside of China won't sort of appreciate to what extent brands, have these relationships with people on the equivalents of the YouTubes in China, right? These platforms, these YouTube channels and so on. What do they do?
Yeah.
Are they sort of active in promoting this stuff? Or
So there are two ways they get involved. Basically, two ways they get involved. The first way, bloggers and live streamers are involved in promoting new retail, is they're using these platforms to promote their personal brand and to promote the message that they are spreading out. For example, Alibaba is an investor in Weibo, right? So they own more than 30% of Weibo, which is China's largest microblogging platform. Weibo, in return, owns Ichibo and Miaopai. These are the two platforms that control short videos and live streaming in China. And, basically all the data, goes somehow to the, I don't know whether it's all data, but a lot of data about what's happening definitely goes to, Alibaba and, their affiliate partners. So they are definitely participating in it through using that technology. And also, new retail itself means that shops, offline shops, and online shops are running on big data technology. So, for example, if it is a hair salon, it will look like a coffee shop where people sit, and there will also be a couple of chairs, hot chair where you sit down, and there is a live streaming equipment. You log in and you start live streaming how your hair is being done or how your nails are being done. So you become micro-influencer. And this shop itself is running.
Anybody?
Anybody can do that.
Right.
You can go there and you can do that. And the fun thing is, if you have a lot of followers, then obviously the hair salon will gain followers. If you don't have followers, then hair salon will sort of, open up their network. And, if people like what you're talking about, you will also gain some followers. So it's entertaining. Besides that, when this person sits in that chair, his live stream will also be broadcasted on the wall next to the door. So basically, at the door, instead of the mirrors and all the marketing materials and promotions, there will be this huge screen where the lady is sitting and talks about her hair being done.
Right.
And this technology, this whole shop is running on currently basically Alibaba technology, or it's running on Tencent technology. So this is the first way they participate. And the second way they participate in it, the whole China and a lot of Western brands are preparing for 11/11 for many, many months. So of course, their goal is to communicate their discount, their promotion, their products, and reach audience. Bloggers are a very effective channel to do that. So while it's not directly related to Alibaba using those bloggers or recruiting them, but brands are doing that. So in the week before and a couple of days after 11/11, all bloggers talk about 11/11, Tmall, shopping festival, discounts, brands in China, outside of China, traveling, etc., etc. So of course, it's a huge chamber effect when everybody's talking about it. And besides that, Alibaba is investing so much money in branding. So they also put these beautiful billboards all around first tier and second tier cities, encouraging people to join this 11/11 movement, so that I don't think that there is anyone in China who's not been touched by the way it's been done.
I like this story of the hair salon. That's really eye-opening. And I think, Ashley, when I go back, I mean, I'm sort of on the wrong side. I'm on the wrong side of 40 years old, and I can remember like retail when I grew up. When you talk about retail, for me, like my generation growing up in retail was like, it was like a museum. You're like, look, don't touch. There was always signs saying, don't do this, don't do that. You'll pay for breakages. And like you would walk around retail like scared you're going to touch something or knock something over. And then, when mobile phones came in, every retailer would have signs saying no photographs, no mobile phones. And if you took your mobile phone out in the store, they would look at you like you were stealing something. Maybe I was checking the prices on Amazon, right? But, what you're talking about now is fascinating. It's like that, this is a new generation which don't have that legacy, and they totally get what needs to be done. I mean, you talked about hair salons. Where else is this? I mean, Alibaba have this platform technology, right, which obviously enables people to do this. Where else does it happen in sort of day-to-day life in China?
Well, it's a great question. It happens in a lot of places. It happens in mom and pop stores, where Alibaba is able, basically they provide technology that allows the small shop owners to track who are the people purchasing from them, who are those people living in the neighborhood? What are they buying? What are their purchasing preferences? What shall they order and how often, to satisfy their demand? What other things in the categories that they are not offering yet do these people, want? What are these people, their audience, what are they checking on, let's say, online platforms like Taobao or Tmall? What are they buying in other stores? So small shop owners are also using that technology, and they are able to grow business. Secondly, Alibaba also has a chain of supermarkets. They are called Hema. And right now they've got several, maybe a dozen supermarkets in Shanghai, and I think 3 or 5 in Beijing. So Hema supermarkets are, it's fascinating. They do delivery. They can even deliver you 1 can of Coke within 30 minutes.
Wow.
Wherever you are, they will deliver you your groceries. How do they, it's fascinating. It's difficult to explain without seeing it, but it's beautiful how they do it. So basically every section of supermarket is equipped with their own packers. So for example, I buy 1 Coke and I buy 1 Beijing duck, right? So somebody from the beverages division and then somebody from cooked food division will pick up my stuff, put it in the bag with my order number, and this bag is traveling on the little rail throughout the store. So on the ceiling there is this rail, and it's traveling, and people are putting it there. So basically, from the time they receive your order to the time when your bag and your purchasing order is complete and assembled is on average 7 minutes. And then the rest of, let's say, 20 minutes is for this delivery guy to actually bring it to your apartment and, ring the bell and ding dong, you're there in less than half an hour.
Is that so that you're not walking around with a shopping cart? You're just sort of picking up stuff and it's just kind of
not.
Like an airport. It's just you're checking it in and it's being delivered.
Right. So this is if you order online, right? But at the same time, if you come to a supermarket, you basically walk in with a cart. And right now you don't, I'll explain you a bit more how department stores work, where you need to first scan your Alipay. So first scan your digital wallet to enter the store. Right now in Hema supermarkets, there's still cash accepted. So basically you just walk in, you get a cart, you buy your stuff, you just put it in, and you can check out online. You can pick a portion of it with you. You can ask the rest to be delivered within 30 minutes. Also, every product, for example, I'm buying, fresh graupa, or I'm buying, something like a pack of chips. Every product is equipped with a QR code. And this QR code you can save and say, you know what, I like this product. So it will be in your cart. When you want to reorder, you can just do it very fast. And it also has the product card with explanation how to cook that graupa, how to cook, something. What other products does it go well with? And also for many products, you can track exactly where does it come from. You know that in China, that's a very big concern, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The quality. Where is it coming from?
Yeah.
Right. Dairy products, seafood, fresh fruits, anything for babies, etc. So it's really, really cool. And the third way this technology has been utilized, and probably the coolest way that I've experienced so far, is the actual department stores or branded stores. So I will tell you of what I've experienced in a department store in Shanghai, and there are over 1,000 shops already operating in China. Exactly this technology. So you walk in, you scan your Alipay. So basically, you allow Alipay to withdraw money from your wallet, right? When you won't enter the store. As you come in, facial recognition technology captures your presence, and whatever you do in store from that point onwards is controlled by that facial recognition technology. So you come to the shelf and you see a product. You see this price tag, and it is digital. So price changes in real time. If I am a VIP, I will have a cheaper price than you.
Wow.
So if Graham comes to that shelf and you are not a VIP, you will see $10 and it will say, Ashley, $8 because you're a VIP. The next cool thing is some of the products will be equipped with facial recognition technology, which now means that you can run some gimmicky campaigns. For example, smile for a discount. Yeah, you look at the product and you smile, and then they give you discount based on how much, how cute you looked. And this is an element of gamification. Everything in retail in China now is gamification, is fun. They have this slogan, retail as entertainment.
Right.
But at the same time, what a lot of people don't understand is that this technology will be perfected, and they will be able to track your micro emotions. So, for example, you come and you look at this pack of chips, and you look confused, or you look concerned, or you look excited. They are able to grasp it and try to basically push you more products, or expedite your decision making. For example, Ashley looks confused. They will tell, "Oh, Ashley, if you buy it now, that's going to be an additional discount." Or, "Ashley, what is your concern? Let us send the shop assistant to speak with you right now." Right?
That would be fascinating if they could get that right. I can imagine that there's lots of instances where that could go wrong. But that, like you say, with the discounts and so on. Hey, just before we sort of go into that technology, just go back a bit. I mean, you mentioned about the mom and pop stores and how they could identify who their customers were, and identify patterns and so on. The kind of the data that they typically don't have, and this is really important. I mean, retailers have always struggled with this fact that they don't know who the hell walks through the door and who walks out again. Even McDonald's, right? These huge multinational retailers. But, is that then all linked back to Alipay? Is that sort of like the identifier in all of this? Like, if I walk into a mom and pop store and use Alipay, then Alibaba can then sort of link me up with all my previous history. Is that how it works?
Yeah, so it works on several levels. They have technology which allows you to track people walking through your doors. So you put those little pins, and if the person has Alipay installed on his phone, then you will know who this person is if they allow you this access. Or when the person is paying for the product, or opening up their Alipay account, also you will get this data. You will understand who the person is, and you will know his patterns. So they will allow you to understand, like, not in detail, what this person is buying, but they will give you basically a bulk of information at the end of the month about all of your customers. So you will not know that, okay, Graham, yesterday bought a pack of Pringles, but you will know that, okay, your guys are generally interested in these things, and you've got so many return buyers, and that's what they're most interested in, and that's where you probably need to be, going, and that's what you need to be doing.
So what do you think that Alibaba, Jack Ma, has done right, in the sense that, I mean, when you look at those stores, and I can't pronounce it, you're going to have to help me out, the Alibaba stores you just mentioned, where Hema. Supermarket. Right? Yeah. I'm not even going to try and pronounce it, but what are they doing right? What is it? I mean, obviously they've got scale and they've got resources, but that doesn't necessarily always mean you're going to be successful. I mean, Amazon by comparison is a fantastic company as well. They've done very well, and they have a very good head. Jeff Bezos is a fantastic CEO, but they haven't pushed into retail. They've only just, obviously they bought Whole Foods Market, which I suppose is a similar kind of move, isn't it? Why do you think Alibaba is sort of ahead in that sense? What are they doing right that the others aren't doing?
Yeah, very good question. The first thing is probably that Chinese companies, and generally Chinese government as well, and Chinese people play a long game. So they are never trying to gain something right now, if that's coming at expense of something long term. So Chinese government is playing a long game. Alibaba is playing a long game. They know where they shall be going, and they know what they shall do. How do they know it? They tried and they failed, and they tried again and they failed again. They have succeeded in taking great technology from overseas and enhancing it, making it better, and making it their own, making it native. A lot of people think that they are copycats. Not just, I mean, not Alibaba or Tencent, no, but generally Chinese are copycats. I mean, this is so outdated. People thought that first they are, irrelevant in terms of technology. Secondly, they became copycats. Thirdly, China is a technological Galapagos where some unique species are, leaving that will never make it outside of China. But right now, people are actually understanding that China made that technology their own. They have fantastic programs. They have fantastic big data. They have fantastic ways to enhance it. So they've done that well. They understand their consumers extremely, extremely well, and they're not afraid to launch a lot of products, fail 80% of the times, but succeed 20% of the times and take it to the next level. Another thing that the rest of the world, in my opinion, doesn't have is the scale, the money, and the share of the market. So when I talk about this scale, so it means this amount of big data. Chinese e-commerce exploded. And it just went, everybody is doing e-commerce in China. Right. No matter whether you're 15 or 90, everybody's buying something through e-commerce. So you've got a lot of data. Secondly, you've got a huge market share. There are just a few companies that are controlling this huge market, right? And thirdly, they have the money and they pretty much can just, launch it just like these Hema, these supermarkets. Everybody's asking Alibaba, when will you start making money with this thing? And they say, first, we're going to get it right. And then we're going to roll it out in the rest of China. That's when we're going to make money. So now for the past year and a half, they've been losing it.
Right.
But they're getting their model right.
Exactly. But that's the benefit of having the scale and the cash in the business to be able to absorb all that. They can take a big risk.
And the data.
Yeah, exactly.
And understanding of their consumers. Yeah,
exactly. It's difficult to sort of isolate one part of that business like the retail and say, well, that's unprofitable when you look at the data that they're getting from that, right? And that's so valuable to everything else. So, they can use that data is valuable in itself, right? Your shopping behavior and, what your brand preferences are and so on. That could be used elsewhere. So you talked about like a small group of companies. Alibaba, obviously one. Who would be their main competitors in that space in China, especially when you talk about the grocery stores, the supermarkets?
Well, in terms of supermarkets, currently, to be honest, they do not have competitors because all other supermarket chains that are currently operating in China are not employing any online to offline technology. Yeah. Right. Like Carrefour or Walmart or Metro, they are just like physical supermarkets.
Right. These are old school, right? These are old school.
These are old school. Exactly. But in terms of Alibaba Group, who are their competitors in terms of online retail, then the biggest competitor is JD. So in Chinese, it's called Jingdong. It is now in coalition with Tencent. Yeah, so they are working together. And they recently invested in VIP.com. VIP is a discount and deals website, very much like Groupon, but for China. And so there's also smaller platforms like Xiaohongshu, Little Red Book, for example, etc., that are more social commerce, or some very specialized platforms, for example, for baby products or for fashion products, etc., etc. Right. But the two biggest ones are Alibaba's Tmall and Taobao, and Jingdong, which is JD.
Right, and that's a partner of Tencent, which is also WeChat.
Yes.
Okay, we talked about the payment system last week. So I imagine, if it comes down to the payment system, there's a huge market split between those two, isn't it? WeChat WeChat payment system and Alipay, right? And that is where the front line, the battle is happening in the retail space for your wallet. How does that actually, as a consumer, how does that actually work? I mean, they sort of competing, or they sort of work peacefully next to each other? How are they sort of competing with each other?
You've been to China, right? There's no such thing as peacefully work together.
I've been diplomatic, so...
Yeah, so it's a fantastic development, where our conversation is going. China is a battlefield. In 2018 and in 2019, it is a battlefield for two companies. It's Tencent and Alibaba. And they are not acting alone. They have their own coalitions. So as I mentioned, Tencent has JD, they have VIP, and then Alibaba is working with Weibo, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Both of these companies, so traditionally, these two companies had very different focus. So Alibaba was focusing on, obviously, online commerce, and WeChat or Tencent was focusing on social media and gaming. But slowly and gradually, they started tapping into each other's areas of expertise. And one of the one that you mentioned is very interesting is, of course, the payment. So WeChat Pay and Alipay are huge competitors. For years, Alipay was dominating, mobile payments in China. Like nobody could come close to it. But this year, last year, in 2017, for the first time, Alipay lost its, majority in the market. So right now it's around 48 or something percent Alipay. It's around 40% WeChat Pay, and the rest, 5 to 8% is somebody else. So this is one space where they're competing, payments. The second space the two companies are competing at is e-commerce. So as we mentioned, JD, VIP Shop, these are Tencent, and Taobao, Tmall are for Alibaba. The next space they're competing at is social media. So Tencent has WeChat. It has QQ, which is a copy of ICQ. Actually, QQ is the largest social media platform in China. And Alibaba is running Weibo, plus several live streaming platforms. Then they also have their own browsers. They have their own video platforms. They have their own cloud. They have, their own travel and bike sharing. Even, bike sharing in China, that's a hot topic, right? So there are two companies in China that do bike sharing. One is Mobike and that one is Ofo. So Mobike belongs, I would say, or is in the Tencent camp, while Ofo is in Alibaba.
There you go.
Right? And then it's everything. And cloud is an important component. Payments is an important component. E-commerce and social are extremely important components. Plus, of course, retail. Yeah.
That's the front line. That's where it's happening. I'm curious how those guys get on. So you got Jack Ma and Tencent's what's his name? Pony something? I can't remember. Pony Ma or something? Pony Ma.
Jack Ma. Both of them are Mars.
Right.
Mars.
They're not related, but it's a strange... No. It's like, obviously, Jack Ma, he was at Davos. He's well known outside of China. People probably recognize his face, especially if they're in the tech scene, they would have seen this guy. Pony Ma is a bit sort of less known, isn't he? Obviously, he's not an English teacher like Jack Ma. Just out of, you're in that scene. I'm outside it. I don't know. Do these guys get on? Do they speak about each other? Do they... is there sort of a rivalry on the sense that, you'd go back to like Steve Jobs and Bill Gates or those kind of setups? What's it like?
Well, they are very open about their rivalry. There's nothing nice going on between the two companies. They know they need each other because they are pushing all of those industries forward. So it's great to have strong competition. So they admit it. At the same time, they are very competitive. Both of them have a lot of data. Both of them have a lot of market share in respective segments, or both of them have money. So of course they are, pushing elbows, and that is why right now for the battle is actually for brands and retailers. Consumers are benefiting either way, but retailers must pick a camp. Are you joining the Tencent camp or are you joining Alibaba camp? Yeah. So who is going to be powering your payments, your e-commerce, your data and your cloud? Who is going to be your operating system for, let's say, business? Yeah, you cannot sit with one bottom on two chairs. You cannot do that.
You gotta commit, haven't you?
You gotta pick your chair.
What about the consumers? Do they? If you put it into context of things, people may know from other industries, like I'm on an iPhone or an Android, and iPhone, I'd never go onto an Android. What are consumers like? Are they like that? I shop at the Alibaba store, and I'd never go to the Tencent store.
Yeah.
Or the
No.
bike service, or are people sort of just getting best of both worlds? How does it work on real day-to-day consumer lives?
Yeah. So actually, in my opinion, consumers in China are the ones that benefit.
Right.
First of all, because things are becoming faster, better, cheaper, and in abundance. So basically, as a consumer, you are winning either way, right? And you have a choice. So you are not, they are not monopolists in any industry. So it's great. And as a consumer, you definitely will have both WeChat and Alipay. Let's say WeChat Pay and Alipay. You will have both. You know both platforms. You know what JD is good for. You know what Tmall is good for. They definitely have their preferences, but generally they're getting best of both worlds.
Right.
So I wouldn't be worried about consumers. They are the ones that get stuff done. In China, whenever there is war, companies tend to throw cash. So, for example, when WeChat Pay was rolling out and, they wanted to get some market share from Alipay, they were saying for every 100 renminbi transaction, we're going to give you $10, 10 renminbi back. And Alipay next day comes back and says, and we are going to give you 12. So they don't mind being such huge companies. They don't mind throwing cash into it. So basically, consumers are benefiting just on all
win.
sides.
But they get it back at the end of the day. I mean, they know 11/11 comes around and it all comes back to them, right? All that cash that they gave you is just going to go straight back into
exactly.
But they're not
it's actually
locked in though, right? I mean, that's the sort of what I was curious. Like, I'm not locked in. For example, if I had Alipay, it makes it difficult for me to have, the Tencent WeChat payment system and so on. That's what I'm kind of asking.
No, that's not happening. However, for social media, for instance, there is no integration between, between competitors. Yeah. So, for example, if you try to include, WeChat QR code on Weibo, your post will be banned. Right. You cannot do that. And then you cannot, basically you cannot link, for example, Tmall to your WeChat account. You cannot, as a brand, you cannot do that. You can link it with JD, but you cannot link it with Tmall or Taobao. So they are making it difficult, again, for brand owners and retailers. They are pushing you to pick a side. Yeah. But for consumers, of course, that's not happening.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I think, as an outsider to China, and while I live in Asia, I can sort of say, we just sort of see these superlatives. So these numbers being thrown around about China and like 11/11 and just, wow, it's happening at such a pace, and like 38%, 39% growth in a year as well that you mentioned. And I think as well, I mean, the really interesting part of this, Ashley, is I think, when you come from outside of Asia and you think about what's happening in China, it's so not China in terms of people's historical
perception.
Viewpoint. Like you're talking about essentially a capitalist market where consumers win. It's like very competitive. It's consumer driven. It's all about retail. And unless you've really experienced that, maybe you're sort of coming into Asia and China in particular with this view that, people are sort of in long queues. They're waiting for their stamps to pick up their government. You know what I mean? That's the sort of, we still have a little bit of that mindset in the West. I mean, I don't live in the West, but I come from that, right? So, I grew up with that.
Right.
So people are surprised when you talk about these two very, very powerful organizations. They are, it's like duopoly, but they're acting in the interest of the consumer, whereas usually in those situations, they just suck all the money out of the market and just screw the consumer, right? But it sounds like, the consumer's doing really well out of this. So it's a really, it's a fascinating wake up for people outside of China to see, maybe what the future of retail is. And I wonder how much of that will go outside of China, what the possibility is for retail outside.
Right. It's definitely going outside of China for several reasons. Number one, there is huge population of let's say native Chinese living, from New Zealand to Canada to South Africa. So there's a lot of Chinese living abroad, and they experience that technology and they're bringing it, with them. Secondly, there are tons of Chinese tourists. Actually, we were speaking about it just earlier, right? There are many. Let me see
62
how
million
many.
was your stat in the book I picked up. 62 million in Q1, right?
62 million Chinese citizens, that traveled overseas in the first quarter of last year. They are bringing demands. They are demanding consumers. They're very spoiled in China with all this technology, with all this pace, with all this convenience. So when they come and stay, let's say, at your hotel, or they are purchasing souvenirs from your store, or when they are buying something, in the first class lounge in the airport, they come with demands. They want their payments. They want their convenience. They want to be able to review stuff, etc., etc., etc. So they are pushing those global providers and brands and even local brands and hotels and universities to change and to adopt technology and to go beyond their comfort zone. And in the coming years, it's only going to, increase. The number of Chinese are going to travel a lot more. The third thing why it would go beyond China, this technology, is definitely the fact that China is now, for example, Alibaba in particular, but Tencent as well, are exporting some of that technology to Southeast Asia, to selected countries in Southeast Asia and in Africa, right? So they're actually investing money in building online marketplaces and building this kind of logistics and online payments and, everything they build in China. They are trying to rebuild with local specifications for some unique Asian and African markets. And the last reason why it will definitely arrive at a place where the whole world is doing what China is doing right now is that China is in retail, in online retail, in O2O integration, which is online to offline integration, is ahead of the whole world right now. And it will only, this spread, this gap between where the world is and where China is only going to broaden. So one way or another, the world will have to catch up. Maybe 5 years later, maybe 3, maybe 1, but there's just no escape. You cannot stay where you are. You will have to arrive at a place when retail is unified. It is integrated. It's not about online and offline anymore. It's not about just entertainment. It's not just about buying jeans because you need a new pair of jeans. It's all these things coming together. These are trends that we cannot, we cannot stop. And they are happening. There's a fantastic book about it, which is called Homo Deus by Yuval Hariri, which is, I think, international bestseller. And he talks about the future of sapiens, our species, and where we're going with the help of technology. And, consumerism is a religion right now. And whether we like it or not, social media, digital, consumerism, robotics, AI, virtual reality, all these things are happening. In China, they just plugged it in the existing, let's say, retail ecosystem much before anybody else, and much more smooth than anybody else so far.
Yeah, they certainly got the advantage. And this is fascinating because one of the themes that I've spoken about on previous podcasts, and the Asia Matters podcast, is about the movement of capital. And I think, until now, you could pretty much get away with not having to worry about China if you lived in your corner of the world, because China was just over there in China, just getting on with its thing, right? And okay, everything came from China, that, everything was manufactured in China, but, it wasn't really an issue. Exactly. That was it. It was all just the cheap stuff that came out of China, right? But then, what's happening now is that China is becoming increasingly crowded as a market. So you talk about, like Tencent and Alibaba fighting each other. And these guys have got a lot of cash. And, they have to keep going back to their investors and saying, okay, what's the story? What's the story? Where are we going to find the next big growth story from? And for them, they're looking around and saying, okay, well, I can get a 7% return in China, but, here in Vietnam or Indonesia, I can get a 20% return, and I'm going to put some of my cash here. So what's happening now is this risk capital is now coming out of China, in the hands of these unicorns, and they're buying up, all kinds of e-commerce players across Southeast Asia. And that's now where it's shifted from being, okay, this was all about China until recently. But now it's like, okay, well, China's sort of happy doing China, but it's also now curious to know what else it can do. And it's coming for Southeast Asia. And that's starting now. I think the next sort of 2 to 5 years, we're going to see a lot of acquisitions in Southeast Asia. And you talk to Africa as well. And then, who knows? Maybe even the US, God forbid. If China goes back into the US and starts buying up American companies, that would be very interesting.
That already started. I mean, Chinese companies started buying, European firms with hundreds of years of history, right? They started buying technology. They, they moved into Silicon Valley, and they are active. They are actively participating in a lot of areas. And Chinese slogan of going global, how everybody was laughing about that. And China went global. And at first they went global by, again, just big acquisitions. They acquired Western firms. Then they went global, pushing their mid-sized companies. But right now, the last stage of going global, in my opinion, for them would be introduce technology in certain spaces, which is so much more advanced that the rest of the world will want to adapt it. And through technology, just like Silicon Valley is controlling the world because they control us technologically, because they export their their basically software that is used in most of the daily operations and engaged in some way. So the same is happening for China and with China. That's where they are aiming. And they have capabilities to do that. They are very active in cryptocurrency. They are very active in AI, in VR. They are very active in, retail, as we spoke.
I think that one of the stories that people, especially the media, latch onto when they talk about China and technology is they tend to think of the scary stuff. I mean, you mentioned like AI and cryptocurrency, and if you're on one side of the media, that sort of means like people losing their jobs and terrorists and all kinds of things, right? I mean, it's all the sort of the negative part of technology. But, what we talked about with retail today is just like very simple application really of technology, like the big data stuff, right? We're not talking necessarily robots. I mean, maybe there are robots as a part of the experience and the logistics side of things. But, what makes that happen is just somebody is able to take the technology and, join all the pipes together. So you got this information from the payment system, and it's not really Star Trek. This is not really, like Star Wars type technology. This is just simple focus on, okay, how can we make consumers' lives better? I know you've mentioned this in your book as well, and you talked about it last week, is that, there's a real focus on, how do we actually add some kind of value to these customers?
How do we add value? Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Just as I think I mentioned it last week as well. I mean, you get to Shanghai and there's a hologram greeting you, right? And this is Star Trek. Why are there no holograms anywhere else in the world that's greeting me in the airport and looks at me and knows that I'm a foreigner and shows me to the left, and if I'm Chinese, shows me to the right? I mean, why not? Right. And in China, they do that. They're not afraid. And of course, we also spoke about it. In China, the attitude towards the usage of personal data is very different. They allow that stuff to go out there, and that of course helps a lot. So that is why China is progressing so fast in this space. It will not be possible in US because of all those limitations. Besides that, China is progressing very fast with, you mentioned robotics. One of the, I think, most successful robotics companies is Hanson Robotics here from Hong Kong. They created this famous robot, Sophia, right? Which is now the citizen of Saudi Arabia. Running on artificial intelligence software and stuff. So China right now in Shenzhen, they are manufacturing an army of Sophias. Well, I'm not talking about Sophia herself, but, similar.
All kinds of applications. Well, we look at the patent applications. I think that, the numbers of patents filed, like something like 3 to 1 versus Silicon Valley. It's happening. Maybe it's not as well known, but it's happening there, right? You mentioned a point which I can't let go, is that about that data side of thing. That's a very important part of this story, isn't it, with retailers, that China's consumers are much more open about giving up their data to the retailers.
Much more.
Why is that?
Because they have the trust.
Right, it's a trust
They
thing. I
trust
just wondered
that
why
with
that
this
was.
data,
Right.
maybe, I mean, in the West, what happens is if I give my data, I'm just going to be pushed more crap and more advertising, and basically I'm going to be spammed.
Right.
In China, if you give that data, you know that they're going to use it to make your experience much more interesting, much more personalized, and much more you. Another thing is that for some operations, for example, when you register certain social accounts, etc., you must enter your real identity. So the entry barrier is already so high, right now, so that you need to give that data. It's not that you have a choice for some options, right? So people feel okay doing that because everybody else is doing that. And then they know that, okay, this is not going to be abused. Yeah. And everybody is afraid in the market. All the companies are afraid in the market to abuse their consumers because once things go real in China, they go very fast and they go very real very quickly.
We talked about that last time.
It hits the fence so fast.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I think it creates, this, okay, first of all, everybody's doing that. Second of all, they are actually doing something good with my data. They are helping me. And if something goes wrong, we as consumers have huge power. We can just bring any company down if something goes really wrong. So
amazing. This is so interesting. And I'm just fascinated. I mean, your knowledge of the market is really in depth, and you're in a really good position to help us unpack it. If I was to go, or any of the listeners was to go to China, and not talking about Hong Kong because it's a different scene there in China.
Right? No, it's not China. It's like 40 years behind.
Right, exactly. I know you said that already. I didn't want to say that because okay, but you say it with authority. If I was to go to mainland China, if I had just one store I could visit to really experience this, where would you send me? Where should I go?
Yeah, I would send you to Shanghai Central Supermarket, Central Department Store. Mm-hmm. Just go to Shanghai Central Department Store and walk through their 4 or 5 floors of shops. You will see the hair salons with live streaming. You will see, you will see the shops with digital mirrors where you can see yourself in the mirror and change clothes right there. So basically your avatar will appear right on the screen. You will see magical mirrors and gamification. You will see people catching cats and Pokemons at discounts. Wow. And of course on the top floor you will see a lot of handmade stuff. That's another trend in China right now. Everybody everybody's into hand making things and making their own cakes or making their own purses and stuff, which is live streamed, which is recorded, which is shared on social. So you walk in and you feel like you live in Japan, right? Mm. And when I walk into one of those game centers in Japan where everybody's playing with those machines, and I feel like something is just wrong in here.
Yeah, you don't belong there, right?
This is weird. You don't belong there. So you will feel exactly like that because it's like the future has arrived and the future is here and the future is now.
You've been listening to Asia Tech Podcast. Find out more at atp.show.